Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I want to thank Ms. Manning and the rest of the PLC for letting me make my presentation today. My presentation is going to be on team-based learning. Now, this was a project that I did for Campbellsville University while I was getting my rank 1. It's a master's action research project, part of the rank 1 requirements, and I did this research earlier in the year. As I said, it was on team-based learning, and as most of you know, I am a football coach. Coached last year at Bullitt East High School, but before that I've coached at many other schools over the last 15 or so years. I love this game. I think it's a great game, and as any of you know who've dealt with me before, I can talk football, all day long. So I love coaching it, and I view it as teaching this great game that I do truly love. So that's how this project actually sort of came about. One day after walking off the football field, talking to another coach, and we just had a pretty good practice, and the kids have been working hard and really improving and doing the right things and trying to get better every day. And we had a particularly productive practice, and we're walking off, and school's coming up, and we're talking about school and all the things that are going to be going on soon. And he said, wouldn't it be great if we could get the kids in our class to work this hard like these kids did today? And that thought really occurred to me, and I was like, wow, that's a great statement right there. If we could get the kids in our classroom to work this hard at their academics, then they could be just as successful as a football team would be when they work hard. So that's how this came about. Now, for this, my research question was, what is the effect of team-based learning on high school social studies class? So, like I said, I'm a football coach, so it was helpful that I was coaching and teaching at the same school, which was Bullitt East High School at the time. So this is based on team-based learning, and as I said, it's would students work this hard in the classroom and work as hard as they do on the football field as they do in the classroom. And that was kind of the goal of what we were trying to get to. So naturally, as a coach, team-based learning comes right to mind in discussing those sort of issues, and trying to get that same sort of camaraderie that you get on a football team or any team that you get in a classroom, to where they would work together, they would strive to help each other, they would try to make sure that each student is improving every day and learning and working hard and doing the right things, giving the kind of encouragement just like a teammate would do on a football team or a basketball team or any other sort of team. That positive type of atmosphere where you're encouraging them, you're pushing them to get better, and you're making them a better athlete. Well, we wanted to bring that same atmosphere into academics and bring that positive attitude and that positive camaraderie that you get on a team, and have that in the classroom to where everybody would work together and really improve. So as I said, the location of this research was in Bullitt County, Kentucky at Bullitt East High School. The grades were from freshmen to seniors. It was a social studies class. The class was Utopia and Terror in the 20th Century. So this is a little bit of an upper level elective class, but there were some freshmen and sophomores and others in the class as well. So you get kind of a mix, like you would get on a team. You get 9th graders all the way to 12th graders. So it took place over 5 weeks' time, a little over 5 weeks actually, during earlier in the year, and I would go in and teach the classes, and we would do team-based learning activities. Some information that I gathered doing this research project was that teachers actually prefer lecture-based instruction. And I guess this is sort of intuitive if you think about it, because teachers coming out of college, other places where they do mostly lecture-based type activities, you learn that sort of teaching method, and it comes natural to do that. And of course, that's part of education. So what we're trying to get to is to incorporate some other things in there as well, that we can enhance the learning in the classroom and just make it a much better atmosphere where everybody's working together. So second thing I found, and I found this to be very interesting in doing my research for this, was that students actually prefer a collaborative style learning environment. They want to learn together, they want to learn from each other, and a lot of times when another student can sort of do a little bit of the teaching as well, that really enhances the classroom atmosphere. You can see, if you've done these collaborative type activities, that sometimes another student will say something and that light bulb will just come on to the student, and then you're like, wow, okay, that learning moment just happened right there. And even though you tried different techniques, it didn't quite work, but once another student kind of jumps in and provides a different type of perspective, a different way to say it, a different way to do it, then the other students will learn from that. So the other thing is that team-based learning can be a structure that engages all of the students together. This is what the research has told us, that that not only does it engage them, but it allows them to get into a higher critical thinking about their content and different things, and just making the classroom a whole lot better. So some of the activities that we did in class, we did group graffiti, which a lot of people have done different type of graffiti activities before. Basically, we would put a large piece of paper on the wall, and then each team would write something about that particular topic that we were covering that day, and other members would chime in with some of their things that they would have on it, and then each group would kind of share all of that information together. So another activity we did was team dueling. And team dueling is just really, it's a game essentially, where teams are competing against each other in a question and answer type of game. And it allows the team to work together to try to answer the question, which is very beneficial. But it also has the other team sort of thinking, okay, how would I answer that question? Because if the first team doesn't get the question right, that might come to you. So everybody had to sort of be prepared, in answering the question, and that kind of kept the whole group engaged, not just the team that was trying to answer that question. The next thing that we did was act history, and act history was just a short play that the students did on some moment in history. Now this class covered World War I. So we talked about different events that happened before the war, during the war, and just after the war. So they could pick any subject that involved in that time frame to do their little skit. And the teams all got together, they picked their performers, and they wrote their script and did all the things and made their little props, and they really had a great time with it. It was really amazing seeing them engaged in this activity. All the kids were into it, and even when they were just watching the other teams do their performance, it was really amazing. They were just totally into it and really enjoying it, and giving each other a little bit of grief afterwards, you know, about their performance, and it was really a great thing. The last thing we did was think and share, and that's where we would give a sort of higher level question to some of the kids, and then each team would sort of think about it, share with their individual team members, and then they would share that later on with the whole group. And this was another good activity. The students really enjoyed it, and they also really brought some great perspectives to it. Each team had some different ideas, and we didn't have anybody's ideas get squashed. We wanted to bring in all those ideas from all the team members and all the different teams, and really engage everyone to a higher thinking level and to think in a different way, and to sort of have a different perspective on the questions that we were answering that day. For this Master's Action Research Project, I did a pre-test and a post-test. This was the same test, essentially given 2 different times. One at the very beginning before we started, and one at the very end at the conclusion of the Master's Action Research Project. Also, I did a student survey, and this just asked different questions about the students, which activities they like best, which activities they like least, what sort of things they thought we could do better, what sort of things would add to the class, and anything else that they thought I could do to make the lessons more interesting. Because that's really what we want, is we want our students engaged in the lesson. We want them actively engaged, really getting into it, and learning, and pushing each other, and giving their perspectives, and doing different things to enhance the lesson and just make it a great learning environment. That's what we're looking for. The other thing I had was a teacher's log, and this was just where I would make comments on the student engagement, and or lack of, if there were some of that, and any other issues that might come up during the lesson, things that didn't work so good, things that did, and that sort of gives me a little feedback on some things that maybe we can do better in the future. Last part I want to talk about on the data collection is the control group. We had a control group and we had an experimental group. The control group was the same class taught earlier in the day, and that class just got lecture-based instruction. They didn't get any team-based activities at all. While the experimental group, they got mostly team-based activities, but also lecture-based as well, because there's sometimes where we just needed to have a little bit of lecture in with the activities to go over some other items and make sure we covered all of the material like we were supposed to. But the experimental group did the team activities, did group graffiti, did team dueling, did act history, and they did the think and share. Last part, or not the last part, the next part I want to cover is the ethics here, and that's that all participants in this Master's Action Research Project signed consent agreements. No participant is named directly in order so we can keep confidential. We don't want to expose any students to anything and allow them to have the anonymity that they would like to have. All the research information was contained on a laptop, which was password protected, or if it were like the surveys and other information and tests and things like that, it was kept in a locked file cabinet, so as to, there again, to protect everyone's information and allow them the complete anonymity that they would like to have. All right, now let's talk about some of the results. Now, of course, every coach would love to have their team win in going away fashion and glorious and all that sort of thing, but we know that's not always the case in life. So the results of the 2 tests, when you compare the control group to the experimental group, was that there was a 2% 8% increase over the team-based versus the lecture-based instruction. In other words, the team-based scores were 2% higher than the lecture-based scores. Now that's not a great victory, but it's still, any victory is a victory, and it's 2 points higher than the other team, and that's still good. We'll take that on any Friday night, as any coach will tell you. So the next part is really probably the most important part, I think, of anything, if you get anything out of this presentation, and that's this. The students overwhelmingly preferred the team-based instruction to the lecture-based instruction. They were really involved in it. They were really excited about doing it. The student surveys showed overwhelming support for this type of instruction, and the students, you could tell, wanted more of it. In fact, many of them, that's some of the comments they put on it, was they want more of this kind of stuff in their classroom. So that kind of excitement, that's really what you're looking for in the classroom. You want your kids to come in every day excited to be there, excited to learn, wanting to get better every day, and doing the right things. That's what you want as a coach, that's what you want as a teacher, that's what everybody wants. And the kids want it too, and they're craving it. And this is exactly what you need to give them. So these kind of activities, they're all involved together, they're working together, everybody's cohesive, they're pushing each other to get better, they're making them think, they're bringing their different perspectives together all the time, and it's really a great thing to watch. It was really fun to do this project, and the kids loved it, and I really enjoyed it too, as you can tell. So it was really great. All right, here's some of the analysis of the data. Behind me you can see these are the individual test scores of the experimental group, pre and post test. As I said before, not huge growth numbers in the pre and post. The last one there is the average of all of the tests. So there again you can see not huge numbers, about a 6 to 7% gain from pre to post. You know, would love to have more, but you know, can't always get what you want. Some of the actions that need to occur for this to be beneficial, and that's that we need to include more team-based learning in the classroom. These are the kind of activities the kids want. We get better test scores out of it, so that's a win. It's preferred by the students, so they're going to come in, they're going to be more engaged, they're going to be more active in the lesson, and they're going to learn more from each other, which is really the kind of things that we're looking for in our classroom. We want everybody to be engaged, everybody to be learning and enjoying themselves and getting good test scores, so you can't beat that. So, and the last part I want to bring up is that team-based instruction was victorious over lecture-based instruction. Now granted, it's a 2-point victory, like I said. That's not great. We'd love to have more of it. But with the fact that students are more engaged in the lesson, and they're enjoying themselves, and they're learning from each other, and they're pushing each other to get better every day, then I think that's a real positive that you can take away from this type of lesson. And I hope that you guys will allow me to share some of this to some others in our class and in our school and in our district, and we'll use more of these in your lessons as well. So these team-based learning activities like group graffiti and act history, kids are just wild about it. So the act history, I thought it was maybe going to be a little bit kind of corny, you know, acting out a part of history. And I thought it was, initially going in, I thought this was going to be the least favorite type activity. But the kids really enjoyed it, really got into it, and also they worked together doing it. And even when they weren't doing their skit, they were involved in what the kids were doing and paying attention and learning from that. So it was really a great activity. So I was very surprised, but that was the #1 activity out of the 4 that was selected. Act History was the favorite. The Think and Share was the least favorite. So, all right. And then finally, I'm going to leave you with the last part, and that is that, of course, this is a PLC, and I'm presenting it here today. I hope to present it to the full faculty as well, and there will also be a YouTube video available, so in case you want to share this with other teachers who weren't here today, who may be interested in this type of thing, I hope you'll share that with them as well. And then, of course, I'll make a presentation to my course as well. Anybody else that you would like for me to present this to, just let me know, and I'm very happy to do that. And I want to thank everyone for coming today, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them at this time. Oh, yes, right. Very good question, very good question. In case you didn't hear the question, it was, how were the other students, the different demographics, how was their test scores? And I kind of skipped over that part, but it was on the slide. But basically it's this: the females in the lower economic group actually scored the highest, or had the biggest gains during that time, during the time of this Master's Action Research Project. So they had the biggest gain in this over all the students, and I thought that was really a great thing, especially when you consider history. For some students, it's not their subject, and I thought these were 2 groups that were kind of underserved in social studies, and that they had the biggest gain. I thought it showed just how dynamic these activities were. Thank you very much, and that was a great question. Nothing else? Great. Thank you all. I appreciate you letting me present today, and you all have a good day.